Welcome back, everybody. This is the podcast Who Am I, where Steve, my co-host, and I um, are very analytical sometimes, but but we try not to be too intellectual, and we try to learn more about our existence, our consciousness, our nature, and that of the world by extension. And we thought today we would look back over the last almost 4 years of doing this on and off. This podcast is almost 4 years old, and we have talked a lot about psychology, sometimes about philosophy and politics. We've had a few guests on, and I would say that there's definitely been an evolution of the podcast, its topics, and the same goes for ourselves personally. So, Steve, what would you say? Could you characterize our approach as going from psychology more into spirituality, maybe?
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, like it's bizarre to think it's been 4 years. Like that's to me that's amazing. Like if someone asked me, "Oh, how long have you been doing the podcast for?" I'd probably be like, "Oh, a couple of years." I'd probably just think it was just like 2 years or something. But it's nearly four. It's crazy. But yeah, to answer that question, yeah, like I think we've gone from more again. I think a more analytical, psychological, and even philosophical approach to more of a spiritual approach. Being the sort of core of where we're coming from. Which is interesting. It's an interesting natural evolution, I think, for a lot of people in the world as well as ourselves. I think that most people, when they again try to understand who they are as a person, we'll all go through our own individual journeys. As we've shared a lot of ours. We're continuing to obviously go through our journey. It hasn't just stopped all of a sudden. And yeah, we all seem to kind of get back to our roots of, I guess, what I would call, spirituality, which I guess defining that is an interesting
Yeah.
task if we want to try and do that.
Yeah, sure. So one factor is, for example, that a lot of people might think of religion when they hear spirituality. Some people might think of voodoo,
Yeah.
as many aspects. I think it has a lot of overlap with psychology, but again, in psychology, there are many facets. For example, there's very academic psychology. And in my last episode, I interviewed a psychotherapist. So he was obviously trained academically, intellectually as a psychologist. But when we're lay psychologists, maybe we just inquire the way we know how, which is mainly into ourselves. Um, and you might think that, great, how can you understand other people better if all you're working on is yourself? Well, actually, that is a lot of how it works. I'm not sure why. I'm not saying that everyone works the same way as I do, but it's because we're not individuals that works. So yeah, one topic has been I don't know what to call it, the common consciousness or the unity of all life. What other topics have we inquired into?
Um, I mean, or in terms of spirituality, or just in general over the episodes, do you mean?
Yeah, spirituality mainly.
Okay, because I was thinking, yeah, I guess all the topics we've talked about, like again, we've talked about systems that we get stuck in that can try and control us,
Mhm.
different ways of thinking. All these things we question to then see if it makes sense to us. Does this make sense to us? And if it doesn't, then we align, I guess, our spirituality, our connection to um each other as a like species, like human beings, as a ecosystem almost, like connecting ourselves to everything around us. Because I think that's to me that's what spirituality is. I think that's what we've kind of to me that's what it's kind of we've talked about things that isolate us to then go, hang on a minute, I don't like that because it isolates us. Um, what's the opposite of that? And it's it's connection to things. It's realizing that I do have a place in the grand scheme of things. but don't necessarily need to feel I have that to be at peace. Like again, there's lots of different things that we've discussed about, again, our own spiritual nature.
I want to mirror some of the things you just said, because it's really interesting. You mentioned at least two ways that you discern of what of the signals you receive are valuable or true. It's really hard to put a finger on this, right? Because in mathematics, there are some rigorous, repeatable ways of testing things. Then trying to transfer mathematics onto nature can be really, really tough. But you said things make sense, and you said things feel bad or feel good,
Yeah.
and those are just as valid. And we try to take all kinds of ways of validating signals from outside, from inside our body or our mind, to make progress on them and to sift through them.
Yeah, like yeah, the way we analyze and feel and think, again, determines how we feel and think. And so therefore, like, as we do this podcast, gives us time to reflect on different aspects of, again, who we are and our interactions with the world around us. And I think, again, some of the conclusions we've come to about spirituality, or that led us to become more spiritual, is that the only things we can sort of really, again, control is our internal stuff, or we can learn to try and not control, that's the wrong word, but try and harmonize and be at peace with, is what is our responses to things, is how we deal with things, is how we choose to relate to things. Because ultimately we could have like been like, we could have in an alternate reality been like, actually, you know what, the only thing that really matters is survival. And therefore money is all that matters because that allows us to survive, like in this current system that we live in. Like we could have gone down that path and been like, okay, well, that's all we'll talk about is, finances and jobs and how to get the next best thing that helps us survive and gives us an easier life. And that could have been a path. I mean, yeah, we sort of want those things to make our lives a bit more better or easier or to influence the world. But actually, at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like that's just, we have come to, or at least I think we both have, I think, come to terms that it is us and our happiness internally that matters. That's the foundation, I guess, or the key to unlock the door, or whatever metaphor you want to use, to, I guess, again, spirituality and happiness.
One of the things I need in order to feel happy and alive is the feeling that I have free will in some measure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like how you said the question of what do I have control over? What can I influence? And when I think something, does it make a difference to something else? Is that ever the case? Well, can I change who's in power in like politically?
Yeah.
Can I change how other people vote? Can I change all this infrastructure that we're just born into? Usually no, maybe to a tiny bit that I won't even recognize when it happens. So yeah, I have turned more and more to the inside and try to find ways of I don't know, just enacting change. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if it's good or bad change. Just I want the feeling that something is different because I exist. And I'm not even sure if that is what I will want in the future. Because some spiritual teachers say that you become more free and more yourself and more alive by relinquishing the control. Not as in, yes, you may now control me and I will be your slave, but everything is one life, and believing that I am this one person, this individual, and everyone else is an individual is an illusion. And actually, I am everyone. And becoming aware of my true nature is the only liberating thing that I can achieve or experience. So that is sometimes a struggle for me, that I want to hold on to old ways of thinking about freedom and life, and trying out these, for me, new ways. I mean, they've been around for thousands of years. They have to be if they're true. But anyway, is that something you can
no,
follow?
that was very, I guess, reflective of what I was thinking and feeling, and how as we try to again liberate ourselves, free ourselves from our thought patterns or systems that, I guess, trap us, we tend to sort of, again, it's a struggle, it's painful, like, we talked about it before, the pain of letting go of things, the exhausting aspect, and that it takes time. Like enlightenment, or again finding peace or finding harmony, becoming spiritual, there's no start or end to it. Like, that's like the Who Am I podcast, it's like, it's an interesting statement to use for a podcast name, because what are we expecting one day just to be like, finish the podcast and go, this is who I am, there we go, I figured it out, thanks for all for joining us, goodbye. Like, is that going to be the case? Like, at some point we just find full understanding of the world around us? I don't think so. I don't think that will ever happen. I don't think we'll ever get to that point where we don't want to discuss what we're experiencing. And yeah, I think as we go through this process that we're going through, we again, I think to me, it's a letting go. Like, I talked about it so many times, is that you were just talking about I'm trying to think, the spirit, like being
Discovery.
Yeah, discovery. And how changing what your old thought patterns were and stuff to new ones, and how there's something I'm trying to say and I can't quite get it out of my brain, sorry. But it's been a journey. Like, it's been an incredible journey so far, just in the podcast alone, let alone our existence.
Right. The podcast has been a very useful way of discussing things amongst ourselves. And for me, a huge part is just putting things into words. Some people like to journal. I don't. That's another way of being reflective and making things explicit. And then I guess your journal is your mirror, so that you can see, well, this thing that I've been believing is actually crazy, and it's time that I get rid of this belief. And so sometimes when I struggle to explain something to you or someone else, I realize that either it's not worked out enough yet, or turns out it's stupid and no longer serving me. That's one huge way that this podcast has been of benefit to me.
Yeah.
It's helped us to keep our friendship going. Last time we saw each other in person was,
oh gosh,
I don't know, 8 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while, isn't it?
And so I'm not good at keeping in touch with people that I don't see regularly, but when you work on something together, that's a great way of staying in touch.
That's a good point. Yeah. No, there we go. That's an aspect of spirituality right there, is creativity. So I think that all of us, I think every one of us have, even if we're terrible at it in terms of our ability to do it. Like, so for example, painting, for example, I'm a terrible painter, like, and a terrible singer. But you know what? I really enjoy singing. And so, like, it's a creative thing to sing. Like, it's a creative, like, it's expressive thing, and that's what, I guess, that's the link between creativity is expression. I think expressing, again, who we are or what we like or what we don't like. And I think being able to express that is what this podcast is being able to express and create together something. And I think that is a huge aspect of spirituality. You could you get a bunch of people together to sing a song together or play music together or to paint paint stuff together, even if they're doing separate paintings, being in that little community to do that thing, there is a bond. There is a strong bond that takes place. And we were talking about therapy earlier and about more academic therapy, but there's again the aspects of therapy and psychology, and how there is a massive branch now of spiritual psychology, which is therapies like creating things and therapies like expressing yourself through different mediums than just necessarily talking. Because we would have maintained our friendship by just talking and catching up, but then we're doing it this way, so it has a little bit of structure, a little bit of creative aspect. Why is that becoming again more of a thing to help heal people? Because again, that's what a lot of psychology is understanding, then therapy is obviously a lot of it is to help heal our minds and hearts and how we feel and how we think. And again, my personal opinion is that we are beings of creativity. Our roots are in the desire to create things. We see that, to me, I see that in computer games. I see that in in a lot of people I know, just people around me. They enjoy creating things. They enjoy the hobbies that involve creation. And when they're most miserable is when they're not doing those things. In a job that is in the office, just doing. Some people enjoy doing spreadsheets. Some people love that, creative. It's that coding, all these things. That's creative. But when you're not doing that thing that you find creative and fun or healthy, yeah, you're sad. It feels like
Right.
something's missing. I don't know if you felt that. You feel like something missing, maybe. I don't know if you felt that, but
Yeah. This podcast doesn't give me any income. It's a hobby, or you might say a passion project. And I guess, well, there are several reasons why I got into it and why I continue with it. One was to challenge myself. One was to become more public. And you're already used to that as an author, but for me, it's still a challenge.
yeah,
And I sometimes wonder what things I am losing by doing this. But I believe I'm gaining more, so it's a good trade-off. And I just forgot the third thing. Being of service to others. I hope that is
yeah,
what we're doing. And I
yeah,
think it is a desire for a lot of people out there to do something in the service of others, that will somehow benefit others, maybe relieve their pain or empower them or anything like that. But like you said, they're stuck in a job that they hate, that they see no purpose in. That is common too. But they um, feel stuck. They feel that it's necessary, and that might be true. I can't judge for them what is the right way to go. I suppose it's a privilege, or we are privileged to be able to have the time and energy and means and materials to do this without any financial reward.
yeah,
But otherwise, it's been very rewarding.
yeah. It's that aspect of, I guess, privilege is a tough one to come to terms with, because obviously, again, I don't remember how much I've talked about it in the past, but obviously, we do mention health stuff, and we do mention our energy levels, and we do mention these kind of things. And I'm lucky to live in a country where there are benefits that allow me to just have a basic life of, a place to live, enough for food, and enough to have, and I've got friends that help me out as well. Like this laptop that we're doing this on, I didn't
Mm.
buy this, a friend gave it to me. Um, and I'm very lucky and privileged to have these things to allow us to do this podcast, allow us to do the creative stuff, to allow us to do these. But then again, it's balanced by the limitations that we, have again through health and struggles. And so, it would be nice to have a proper, I guess, inverted commas, proper income or from this, but at the end of the day, we don't need it. We're lucky to be able to have this time that we have to create. And again, that's a value thing. Like again, we talked about it before, going down the sort of, talked about healing, talk about what we just talked about, but having value on something. And it's the world does not value, or we have lost the value of such things as creativity or understanding who we are. Like in this country, in the UK, the budget for creative stuff is constantly being cut, even for like mental health stuff as well. Like just like those two things side by side, and it's leading to a very sad society. Like, sad as in like upset, angry all the time, frustrated all the time, like. And the energies are very, still obviously hope, laughter, love, it all exists, but as a whole, I feel that people are becoming more and more disheartened because, basically because we're not getting time to create, time to enjoy each other's creations. We don't value it. Again, it's perception. Like a lot of people would rather just go to the cinema and yes, watch a film than, go watch a play. And actually a play really is, it will, again, depending on the play, depending on the story, depending on the actors, blah, blah, blah. But it, in my opinion, would have more value to be amongst a like theatre scenario, as in a drama play rather than a cinema situation. Because there's creativity that's gone in, more creativity, in my opinion, more value around that. But we just want quick, easy entertainment. So therefore we don't value that, which takes more time and energy. And it's more expensive as well. Again, it's money. Always comes back to money. It's more expensive to go to the playhouse theatre these days than it is to a cinema. So that limits things, cost.
Yeah, in education, technological subjects are much more supported. You are prepared to become a professor in a sense, or you are prepared to become an engineer. My feeling is that those are the huge focuses, and that art is something that pathetic people can do in their free time.
Yeah.
And I guess that has a lot to do with the mechanistic worldview and the lack mentality. And yeah, it's just a perpetuating belief that we need oil for machines and plastic in order to move things faster, in order to make more profit. And it's just what's the purpose behind it all? It comes down to survival and greed, I would say. So the very lowest step on the Maslow hierarchy of human needs. So that's pathetic in a sense, if that's all that society cares about. And I'm not saying that everyone is guilty of this.
Of course.
It's just something that we carry in ourselves and that we usually feel is necessary because we buy into it. But there are ways of freeing yourselves from that, even if it's only in your spare time at first. Colin Firth said in an interview when he was reflecting on his early times of trying to become an actor, and he felt like it was a calling and it would be fulfilling for him. He said to the young acting students in the audience, look for someone who will pay you for what you want to do, and if they won't, then go to someone else. And that really stuck with me. I forgot everything else about the interview, but I thought, yeah, that's true. I need to be true to myself before I can expect anyone else to be loyal to me. And this is one of those projects.
Yeah. And it also involves a confidence of interacting with people. This is like most, like I guess, if we're talking about, again, we've shifted a little bit. If you're talking about, again, spiritual nature for the sake of spiritual nature, if you're talking it in terms of value and the creative aspect of spirituality, to then earn a living and to be able to survive using it, to be able to survive using your creativity or your hobbies or these things, it involves interacting with people, and that can be tough for those that are creative.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting, is that a lot of people that are creative have anxieties around being around people, who struggle to put themselves out there, because again, it's so cutthroat out there, because it's hard to break through. Whereas again, if we had if there's more value on these things, you could just go down the local community center and perform your play that you want to play. And if people again weren't critical and understood that these things are important in whatever form, again, expression, being true to oneself, showing who we are as a person, who am I? If we were able to be that honest with each other without all the criticisms, then we would be so much more, again, loving, kind, happy as
and
people.
open to taking a risk.
And it was taking risks. But because we're afraid, again, going back to fear, which we talked about a lot before, is it stops us from doing these things. And so because there's so much criticism, because there's so much competition, it makes it hard to break through in these areas, to have it as your job or source of income to survive, because that would be the dream, but it shouldn't be. That should be the reality. That should be the norm, because again, we are lucky, we are privileged that we don't have to go out and farm the fields. We don't have to go out and do this and spend the whole day doing these things. We are lucky that we'll go hunting and gathering and spend all, storing up things for the winter to then survive over winter. And we live in a very privileged time in human existence. But also a very restricted, as we know, very restricted in many things. We're now dependent upon these pieces of paper and these bits of metal called money to be able to survive. And there is satisfaction from work, being able to achieve that and get that money. But it has, in my opinion, numbed our society to, again, spirituality. And I think, again, as we've gone through the podcast, we've pulled that apart, we've ripped that apart, and looked at more and more, trying to figure out, where do we fit into this scheme of things? Where do we place ourselves amongst all the spectrum of society? And yeah, I think again, we're leading towards more a spiritual society that is, or we want. You and I. I'm assuming that. I mean, what do you think about it? Is that your dream? What's your utopian dream? I guess.
No, my thoughts were going in the direction of utopia, and my image of utopia has changed over the years, but only slightly. Some things have been there all the time. And one is, for example, that everyone can be themselves, that no one needs to hide who they are. I remember as a 20-year-old, when I was thinking about this, I said, I want there to be no difference between what people think and what they say. And by that, I didn't mean that it's like people are talking all the time, that you can hear every thought. I meant that you do not wear a mask. You do not change yourself. In the presence of other people. And I can also confirm what you said about being a business person. Well, not from experience, but I've heard it so many times from trainers that you need a community. You cannot make it on your own. I mean, sure, you can achieve a certain sense of independence, but actually we're all interdependent. So there's no absolute independence out there. What was I saying? And so I think it would be nice to make money. That system can work. Yes, it's been abused and we are being exploited through it. But I hope to become an entrepreneur in the future. I hope that this audience will see a lot more of me, because I plan to become even more public. I don't know if I'll be making any money through this podcast or through some other project. But in a utopia, I imagine there would be no money. And it's difficult for me to imagine all the consequences of that. It would mean that maybe there would be more trading of things, direct trading of products and services rather than via the medium of money. That's often difficult because, what is it called? The coincidence of necessities or something like that. So that sounds realistic, unrealistic right from the beginning. But but like emotionally, I imagine there would be more love.
Yes.
That people are just interested, that your benefit is my benefit automatically. Just if I serve you, I have automatically served
Yeah.
myself. And so I'm
It's
not interested in reciprocity.
yeah. It upsets me and angers me when people talk about, I have this again utopian concept in my head where again, no money, no nothing like that. And even trade isn't technically really a thing. Um, Not in the sort of like uh normal sense of the word. It's just giving. So if you see someone that needs something that you can give, you give, and they'll do exactly the same themselves. So you just give what you need to give at any given point. Lol, the word give there. But yeah, like what really annoys and upsets me is when people talk about, training of nurses or doctors or firemen or policemen or all these kind of concepts, and they go, "Oh, we can't live in a place where there's no money because then, no one's going to want to be the doctors because because they won't get paid like more." And I just face palm like so hard because like over history people have still done these things when they haven't been paid. Like right now, again, I can talk about like recently in the UK, like the nurses and doctors are so understaffed. Well, especially nurses more than anything, so underpaid right now. So underpaid. Like literally, like their working conditions are horrific. They're working 12-hour, 16-hour shifts. They're not being paid nearly enough, and they're still doing it because they care, because they want to look after people. They want to make sure that people. It's not because they're like, oh, I still need that money to live. Most of them probably could go and find another job. And so that argument of like, oh, how do we, we have to value things so that people will specialize. People will still specialize because it's their nature. Some of these people will still do it. Um, and so therefore you can just have, some people will still want to be bin men. Like it's gonna sound weird, but you know what? I would love to help out by just like cleaning up the streets.
Mm.
Like, you know what? If I had a bunch of people that I knew that were like, hey, you know what? This week it's our turn to to clean up the streets and take the trash to the trash place. I don't need anyone to pay me to do it or anything. Let's just do it. Like, why do we have to have a reward system? Why are we so insecure as a species that we have to be like, yay, feed my ego, give me things because I've done something? Why does it have to be reward? The reward is the act itself. And that is my idea, I guess, of a utopian. Like you said, more love, more care, more willingness to just do.
You,
Um,
you're saying a lot of the same things that I listened to the other day by Rupert Spira, an
okay.
English spiritual teacher, and he said a lot of what you're describing comes from the sense of separation or the believing that we're all individuals.
Yeah.
It would be more useful if we thought of ourselves as an ant farm, for example, where we are one organism, right?
Yeah.
And when any part is serving any part, then the whole benefits,
Yeah.
and you feel responsible, and it's like a holistic approach.
Yeah.
Anyway, the sense of separation or the belief that we are separate is false and is an illusion,
Yep.
and it is a narrative that gets spread from generation to generation and through media and through how we treat each other. Even though we're treated badly, we propagate that behavior with others. Um, and he said, you need to bring it into the light, into the open, because that it's like a little monster inside of you. And the monster can only survive as long as you're not aware that it exists. And so by allowing your feelings to be expressed, by admitting that you're sad or feel lonely or depressed or angry, whatever it is, by admitting it to yourself, by whatever it is, crying, writing
Yep.
about it, speaking about it to someone, you shine a light on it.
Yep.
And then it's like that ghost or whatever just poof, disappears, or it loses its power, loses its grip on you, and you're suddenly freed from this. I would call it a rumination, a
Yeah.
recurring belief that you feed with your energy. Um, if you give in to anger, for example, you're only sustaining it.
Yeah.
And so, and by giving in, I mean acting on it, or acting.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The other giving in, the positive way to give in to anger is to allow the feeling. You don't have to act on it, but by feeling it, it runs out of steam.
Yeah.
And that's why I think one of the most central topics on this podcast has been awareness.
Yeah.
Whenever I enter those topics to make the videos more searchable, awareness is one that keeps coming up.
Yeah. No, like you're talking about well, if you're talking about spirituality, and to me again, you were talking there about connection. And often we've talked about purpose. And I think connection is more important than purpose, because I think connection can be the purpose. Again, I'm just running through it in my brain as I'm talking. Because like often we feel we need a purpose about something. I need to be, again, to help others, or to do things that like make $1 million, or be really good at something. But I think connection transcends that. And I think that is spirit. To me, that is spirituality. So like the connection that we have, when I go away from this, I feel like, again, not alone. You were talking about again that loneliness, that anger or frustrations, those emotions that build up, which again is mostly what's happening in society. Is that there's loneliness. I bumped into someone last night. I was walking down the street with my board games to go to the board games group, and the dude was like, "Oh, that's cool what you do." Because I told him what I did. Like he's like selling a magazine to make money, like the big issue they call it in the UK. And I spoke to him. I was like, "Hey, how's it going? Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, just struggling with stuff, and I feel alone." But I spoke to this priest at a church that was going to potentially let us use the community center so we can talk about things. And I was like, "That's so good, because we need that. We need that connection. We need to be able to express ourselves." And I think that is what's missing. I think that is probably the fundamental thing that globalization, weirdly, and
social media,
again, technology, social media has caused to happen. Because again, these things by themselves aren't bad things. Again, like it's what we do with them. And again, businesses, politicians have turned them into things that create loneliness, isolation. Again, social media, news people, again, news companies, fear mongering, makes you afraid to go outside, makes you afraid to meet people. And that's where, again, I think spirituality has been lost. And I think there's a resurgence in that. I think in the last sort of, maybe not, in the last sort of 50 years or so, I think since the hippie days, there's been a huge sort of like trying to push against what's going on to create connectivity. And we need to start doing that in communities. That's where it's going to start happening more. Is like, again, using the tools like this, create communities on the internet, create communities within social media. I've got another friend who's doing that right now with various different mediums, who's creating a really cool community. And that's, to me, a spirituality. That to me brings happiness. And I think and a purpose by just being connected. Don't know.
I have a question for you. As we finish up, there are, as you're probably aware, many inventors in the world that come up with technologies for very cheap energy. I'm talking near zero cost energy.
Yeah.
And we don't hear about them because they get suppressed. For example, when they try to get the patent, their technology gets confiscated, or they get threatened, or sometimes killed.
Yeah.
And an obvious suspect for that is the oil industry. They don't want to lose their monopoly on our power supply, oil and coal and gas. Do you think we would be any closer to utopia if everyone had a tiny device in their home that would supply them with more energy than they could ever need for all their needs?
Interesting. That would unlock potential for, like, definitely.
We've talked about lack mentality, dependence on money, machinery. So I think it would definitely have an impact there. But thinking spiritually,
Yes. What
Would
can?
it make a big change?
Yeah. Yeah. Like if we took away again dependency and
Hmm.
gave again freedom, gave the ability to just not
Less
have to worry, not
less
have to worry
fear.
about, yeah, not have to worry about heating your house, not have to worry about getting food because again you just get the thing, you'd have the energy to just provide that, cook the food or whatever it is you need to do. Yeah, like a lot of loss of worries and stress.
I think it would
Uh,
equalize the developed and the developing world a lot more.
yes.
We would be more in touch with like Africa and South America, and
Yeah.
we so often aren't because they are not as rich as we are,
Mm,
and our businesses are only interested
yeah.
in trading with rich people. And
Yeah, they're exploited. Like again, just earlier on, I was listening to something that talked about how um companies can there's a system in place which companies can sue countries if they break terms of agreements. And so, for example, the example gave was can't remember the country, but an African country where they um I think it was energy-based stuff, and the um company sued them for it, and then that's for billions, and that company had to not do it. They had to stop doing what like the um internal infrastructure, making it better for their own country. They had to stop making their own country better
hmm.
because this company would have ripped them
Oh,
to
a Western
rich
company
company. Sorry, yeah, rich company. Sorry,
was
yes,
suing a poor country.
a country.
A rich country was suing a poor company. Okay, yeah.
No,
No.
no, a company, a rich company was
Hmm.
suing a
A poor country.
country,
Got it. Got it.
um, because the country was trying to progress further in its own things. And the fact that they can do that, like I didn't realize
Mm.
they could do that. I didn't realize companies could sue
Mhm.
countries because of trade agreements. Again, how the trade
Right.
stuff is set up. Um, and that
But
was
those
just
agreements
like,
are not mutually beneficial.
well, no, but yeah, they're not mutually beneficial. But that country has been, yeah, caught up in that situation. So yes, again, differences divide us. Again, by its very nature, we're constantly like told this is separate from this is separate from that, is separate from this. These we're richer here, they're poorer there, and it's all just it's all just ways to divide us. Even again, the male female thing, like there's a lot of empowering stuff to do with male and female energies, but they're not ex, ex, inclusive, no exclusive. They
Mutually
are
exclusive.
human. Yeah, they're human emotions, human powers, and like we need to start, in my opinion, if we want to be again happier, more spiritual, more um at peace, more healed, less fear, more love, then yeah, we need to again find what unites us and appreciate the differences if there are differences. Like like you said earlier, being able to just be ourselves, like being able to express ourselves, express our thoughts in a way that is no judgment, just and just someone listening to those. Um, it's bizarre that we live in a world that we are so critical of others when they say things, or to me, it's bizarre anyway. That we feel we have to just like share our opinion when someone says something, like in terms of it's contrary, and make an argument and make a just like a like debate or argument. When actually just listen. It's just different. There's no right or wrong kind of scenario. But this podcast, again, I guess we're coming towards a conclusion, as you said a minute ago, has helped us, I guess, come to that conclusion where we are more focused now on our spiritual journeys, I think, and that of love, spiritual journey of love. Um, I think that's what we've achieved so far. I don't know about you, or what you feel and stuff.
Um, yeah. I'm still learning what love is. Just most recently, it dawned on me that it's the thing that makes that common consciousness, or that turns a group of individuals into a single organism. Um, and just to go back to the energy question,
Sorry, yeah,
if if everyone no longer had any energy supply problems, then I think there would still be a lot of fundamental problems spiritually that everyone needs to work out for themselves, and
yes,
that we as a whole are also starting to wake up to. So yeah, the value of this spiritual work would be no less. It's just as important as
Yes.
when, you know, physical survival requirements are covered.
Yeah, it would free people's time and their own energy up to be able to contemplate these things and spend time on these things if we had the energy source.
We would finally rise higher on the Maslow hierarchy
Yes.
in general.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Likewise.
I
Thank you.
have not felt comfortable yet to do any episodes on my own. I keep having ideas, but there's something that just makes it difficult for me, and having someone like-minded to share thoughts with has made it possible and easier.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that we can put these things out there on the internet, and hopefully help other people with their journey of awakening as well.
Yeah.